Steve Bannon is set to appear for a virtual status conference today as he faces contempt of Congress charges. The former Trump White House strategist entered a plea of not guilty and waived his right to an arraignment. And this comes after he defied a subpoena from the House committee investigating the January 6th attack on the Capitol. Bannon vowed to fight the charges after surrendering to federal officials Monday and told supporters to, quote, stand up against the Biden regime. So joining us now to discuss this is CBS News legal contributor and former federal prosecutor Keir Dougall. All right, Keir, Bannon filed the motion yesterday and waived his right to an arraignment, which means the virtual status conference scheduled for today could look a little bit different. What can we expect today?
Yeah, that was not a surprise. I don't think anybody is going to be surprised that Mr. Bannon intends to plead not guilty and has filed that motion. I expect that the judge will confirm it as a matter of procedure, and then I think we're going to start to see how this trial may shape up. I would be looking to see whether or not the defense indicates that it is going to be making perhaps a motion to dismiss, motions that will begin to outline its defense theories. We may see motions relating to Mr. Bannon's bail if anybody has issues about that. I'd be looking to see about trial scheduling as well, and scheduling of the other procedural matters that will lead up to the trial. So I think those are the highlights for the court appearance today.
So throughout this whole thing, even, with the congressional subpoenas, Bannon has been claiming executive privilege. So that's problematic on a number of levels, but sort of one of them is that he wasn't even in the White House. He wasn't even working at the White House on January 6th. Can you just talk about whether or not, I know we've kind of discussed this before, but this argument about executive privilege, does it hold any weight at all?
Right. So the executive privilege is, when you step back and look at it, it's a boundary dispute between the executive branch and the legislative branch about how much secrecy the executive branch needs in order to do its function, and how much transparency the legislative branch and the people at large need to oversee the the actions of the president. He is subject to supervision by Congress and of course by us every 4 years. So that's sort of the large measure, and the specifics here, as you point out, are that Mr. Bannon was long out of the office that he held in the administration, and in particular talking about things that would be problematic for the executive privilege anyway. Of course, the subject that the congressional committee is looking at is a crime. You just described the QAnon shaman who was sentenced for felony. We're talking about insurrectionary conduct. And so, one of the core questions that I think is going to be debated up to the trial and in the trial is whether or not executive privilege, even if it would otherwise apply, and there are serious questions about that, with a former president asserting it, in effect, with respect to somebody who is no longer in his administration, but whether it can be asserted for wrongful conduct at all. So these are, I think, some of the areas of dispute that we're likely to hear leading up through and into the trial.
Of course, what got him here was his non-cooperation with the congressional committee investigating the January 6th attack. We know that there are more subpoenas that have been sent out to a host of former Trump aides. Bannon used some pretty fiery words outside of his initial court appearance, outside of the courtroom. Will Bannon's case set a precedent, and could we see this fight with all of them, all of the people who have been issued subpoenas, if they choose to? And I'm also wondering about whether or not this could affect the speed at which the January 6th committee can work at, whether or not this is going to hold up the job that they're doing.
Right. So those are great questions. I think Mr. Bannon is trying to use this attention that he's getting in a way to advance his agenda I think one of the things, depending on how, whether that effort continues strongly, the judge may consider a gag order. We've seen it in other cases where the concern is effectively interfering with an impartial jury, which will be selected in this case. On the Justice Department side, one of the goals of the criminal system, it always has been deterrence and education to teach people and to prevent people who might be tempted to commit crimes, to stop them from doing so. So yeah, all of those issues are going to be in play.
So you talked a little bit about what we might see from the defense. That'll give us a little indication of where they're going. In general, what's the next step in this process?
So in general, I think we'll see trial scheduling. We'll be looking at the docket for motions. We'll be, waiting to see whether or not Mr. Bannon is out in front of the public in a way that causes the prosecutors to go potentially seek a gag order to protect a potential jury. I think those are the things that we'll be looking for. We'll also be looking to see whether or not Congress refers any other recalcitrant witnesses for further prosecution, or whether or not Congress chooses to use any of its other remedies to get the information it needs to assess changes in the law for protecting Congress and protecting our elections, whether they'll seek civil remedies in court or do something they haven't done in 90 years, which is sent the sergeant-at-arms out to arrest people on their own authority, which the Congress continues to have.
Oh, that would be something, Keir. Keir Dougall, thank you very much.